Ayo, welcome into CHGO presents CHGO Big Ten After Dark, powered by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app today and use promo code CHGO when you sign up. Welcome into Studio B, standing for Big Ten, in our West Loop offices, our CHGO, in the West Loop of Chicago in our CHGO offices. I'm Sean Anderson. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_W_Anderson. Alongside me is my host in Degeneracy, Cody Delmendo. You can follow him on Twitter at Cody_CHGO. And we got Brick Boy, Greg Braggs, joining us.
Bragg Juice.
You can follow Braggs on Twitter at GBraggs Junior 23. What's up, Brick?
Hello. How are you, gentlemen?
We're good. I loved it. I loved your reaction on Sunday when the Bears got the first overall pick. And I loved Hogue just saying, you know, Braggs is doing his own show. Braggs is just talking about the first pick each and every time he opens his mouth. You were great on Sunday.
I had no interest in talking about anything but the number one pick. So they're like, oh, Velus Jones look good. That's great. No one cares. Number one pick. Let's move on.
That's going to be you until April, until they make the number one overall pick.
For real. What a miracle.
We got some Big Ten to talk about today, obviously, here on Big Ten After Dark. A lot of hoops action to cover. No football action to cover because Ohio State and Michigan both lost in the semifinal, not making it to the title game. We might
rest in peace.
Jump into some Jim Harbaugh talk, maybe, because that story is still ongoing. But we'll go to the hoops action first. A lot to talk about. Purdue, after losing to Rutgers, they've won over Ohio State and Penn State. Indiana's on a bit of a skid here. Northwestern, a little bit of a dark horse in our city. Illinois is punking Brad Underwood after the Nebraska loss. They're giving him the silent treatment as he walks into the locker room, and then the place explodes. And then Michigan's got a big game tonight against Iowa. Is Iowa back? Is Michigan back? A lot to talk about in Big Ten land. But Cody, where do you want to start first? What's the biggest story you think this week in Big Ten basketball?
Considering preseason expectations, Sean, like I feel like we got to start with Indiana. I know the title on the show is Northwestern, and you know we are in Chicago, so I would say between one of those two. But I will say that Northwestern and Indiana had a barn burner the other day. So I mean, I guess we could pair them together in a way. But Indiana's trending down, and Northwestern's trending up.
Yeah, Northwestern with huge wins over Illinois.
Northwestern beat them by 1 point.
And Indiana, and so far 3-2 in the Big Ten. Braggs, you guys have responded so far after the Rutgers loss. How's Purdue feeling?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be very impressed by what Purdue did after losing, you know, a couple big-time shots at the end. Fletcher Lawyer makes one, and then Cam Spencer, who's, I think, becoming going to win the title for most hated player in the Big Ten, hitting big shots on the road at Mackey, and then against Northwestern last night where it looked like Northwestern was going to win. Rutgers pull it out in dramatic fashion. But no, I mean, even regardless of that, for Northwestern, they certainly look impressive. You know, they may, you know, we'll see how they do on the road, but at home, they're a team to be reckoned with. You go to their house, you're not going to get some easy win from them. They move the ball pretty well. They're pretty confident on the offensive end. So you have to like what you've seen from Northwestern so far, and I know Mark Carman certainly is. Indiana is in complete shambles. Yes, they have injuries to Race Thompson and Xavier Johnson, and that certainly hurts. 2 starters lost to any team would be a big blow. So I'm not going to undersell that, but at the same time, they just don't have any fight in them anymore. I mean, the way they played last night against Penn State, getting their teeth kicked in, and the lethargic energy that they showed, I just think it's tough because Trace Jackson Davis isn't my favorite player. He's certainly talented. I'm not trying to hate on him too hard, but I think at times he has attitude issues, and he's also, just if you want to stick to his game on the basketball court, is very one-dimensional. So when you take away Xavier Johnson and Race Thompson, that now gives defenses even more of an ability to key in on the only thing he does well, which is post play. And, you know, so that just makes them very hard. It's going to be very hard for Indiana to compete without those guys. The losses are going to start stacking up. So, you know, I know Cody's Fighting Illini have turned it around since Sky Clark left. At that moment, it looked like they were going through the toughest time of the Big Ten, even more so than Indiana. Now all of a sudden they've found new life. They're a talented team. They're certainly not out of it by any means. And you mentioned Iowa. I've never seen a more Jekyll and Hyde team in the Big Ten than Iowa this year. You know, I think before the season started, a lot of people thought they'd be very good. Then they looked really bad. Now they
lost
really
Eastern.
Lost to the Harvard of the Midwest.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, they've had really bad losses, and now all of a sudden they're having really impressive Big Ten wins at home. So, so it's just going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. But I think overall, I'm always looking at things through a Purdue lens. Things have set up really nicely for Purdue because if there is no great team in the Big Ten, and I think Purdue still has a long way to go to be considered great. They're top 3 in the country, but they still haven't reached their ceiling of potential because they have young players besides Zach Edey, who's obviously, a National Player of the Year candidate. But what they are is the most consistent team in the Big Ten. And maybe just being consistent is going to be what gets Purdue to the finish line to win the Big Ten regular season championship, because Rutgers, they beat, Purdue, and then they lose to Maryland, damn near lose to Northwestern. They're a very talented team, but the consistency is key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's, I think, where we stand right now. It's Purdue, and then it's everybody else. Good luck figuring it out.
I'll say this much, though, Braggs. Michigan State's coming along.
7 straight.
4-1 in the Big Ten. They're 12-4. Tom Izzo. I don't need to say anything else. But yes, you're right. I would say Purdue, it's their conference to lose at this point.
But Michigan State here, I mean, a huge game for you guys coming up, because Michigan State on the 13th tomorrow, they'll be playing Illinois, and then on the 16th, they'll be playing Purdue.
On
so,
Monday
I mean, huge test here for Sparty.
Yeah.
Yep. So
to kind of circle back on everything that Greg was kind of saying, related to Indiana, I'm looking at the standings right now. They're the only, outside of Minnesota, they're the only team with 1 conference win. They're second to last. We're talking about a team that had the expectation to win the conference coming into the season. And again, injuries are injuries, but the recruiting class this year isn't bad. Like, Hoosier fans were hyping up, Sweet 16, Elite 8 aspirations, man. So I don't know. A lot of people love Mike Woodson. I don't have an opinion, to be honest with you. I couldn't tell you if I think he's good or bad, but with the way that program, but just the fan base there, they have high expectations, and to live up to those, it's tough. Even
TJD said after the game, coach had a game plan and no one listened. And it seemed like TJD was the only one listening to Mike Woodson. So it's at this point, is IU basketball just have too big of a head for, not even achieving anything at this point? I think it's fair to ask.
And it's also, we haven't even mentioned this, it's kind of going around on the internet about how their players they're on their phones too much, reading what everyone's saying about them. Miller Kopp, I think, is the last one I saw leaving a comment on some Instagram posts of IU fans that were, basically shitting on the program and everything. And it's things like that where when things aren't going well, you just gotta you gotta cut all that out, And to me, that's what something the coach should be doing, and
right.
And he's not doing it.
And just to bring this up before, sorry to cut you off, Braggs, but
good.
Georgia, we don't hear about Georgia being like, oh, hey, we're ready to prove the doubters wrong throughout the season. No, you only hear that Kirby Smart's telling them that people are going, had them predicted to go 5-6 and 7-6 after they went undefeated and winning the national title game, right? Like, Indiana is already thinking they've won the national title game, and they're not even 15 games into their season.
Right.
Well, that's the disease that is Indiana Hoosier hysteria, and I caution people to start the year, them being favorite and top 10 around the top 10 preseason rank. That's not good for them, because they already have an unmatched expectation from their fan base. And sometimes it's not warranted. This year, you could argue it was warranted with expectations, but their fans are like this every year, even if they have a terrible roster. They are crazed fans, and they put a lot of pressure on this program. And, it's all to be the hunted before you've even proven yourself as a team. They had a nice run to end last year, found themselves a little bit, but it's just so hard when you've yet to prove yourself and now you're already this hyped up team before the season starts. So I think that's something that really hurts them, every year, is trying to meet the expectations of the fan base. And then overall, when you talk about the way they play the game, and maybe this is a generalization because I follow Purdue much closer, but they just don't run a system. And TJD might be saying, oh, they're not listening to the coach. But at the same time, from my vantage point, and I watch a lot of Big Ten basketball, they don't have system. They rely a lot on one-on-one NBA type basketball. That's what Mike Woodson came from, the NBA. It's not he's a Bob Knight. He played under Bob Knight. This isn't a Bobby Knight offense for those that can remember it. He's bringing what he knows from the NBA. With Purdue, if you watch their games, and they're always going to be compared to Purdue being the rivals that they are, they have a system. They run offense. They run plays on top of plays on top of plays, and those plays have different wrinkles within each play to give you different options to get the most out of your players. I promise you, if you put Matt Painter on the Indiana Hoosiers the last 5 years, they'd be the better team than Purdue, because Matt Painter is the difference, is the common denominator that can get the most out of the players that are on IU. They're good players. They need to be put in the position to win. And I don't feel like the coaching staffs from Mike Woodson and before that, with
Tom Crean.
In between,
and then
Tom
Archie
and
Miller.
Archie Miller don't do that well enough. And obviously Matt Painter has kind of mastered this at this point in his career.
And hey, even the Kelvin Sampson era. I mean, that guy only got 2 years, and look at what he did now in
Eric
Houston.
Gordon, I still haven't forgotten.
Well, I mean, they got
some
screwed with
time.
that, right? Because Kelvin Sampson made some phone calls and he got ran out, and now he's, look at the program he's built with Houston. And I'm sure IU fans are like, we don't really care about phone calls.
Yeah, right. Apparently it was text messages, and now, if you send text messages with bags attached now in 2022, there's no issue with Kelvin Sampson.
Right.
Anyways, let's take a quick break here. We'll continue the Big Ten discussion. We also got some Jim Harbaugh that I want to throw out there, just because we do got an NFL guy with us in Braggs. The NFL playoff picture is locked in, and our go-to place for wild card round action is DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off the road to Super Bowl 57, new customers can just bet $5 and get $200 in free bets instantly. Plus, all new and existing customers can get a no-sweat bet each day of the wild card round this weekend. Just place any NFL bet on your choice, and if it loses, you'll get a free bet back up to $10. Action so good, why bet NFL playoffs anywhere else? I like the Giants money line this weekend. I like the Bucks money line this weekend. I like the Jags money line this weekend. All three underdogs. We love plus money on that show, and that's where I'm going to be putting my money today or this week on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code CHGO. New customers can bet just $5 on the NFL and get $200 in free bets instantly, only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code CHGO. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. I do want to
can we read Alex's comment?
Yeah,
I want to read Alex's comment.
The Painter and Shrewsbury one?
No, the first one.
Go ahead.
Where he says, shout out to Alex, by the way. He's been in studio before. They were ranked based off an unsustainable 2-week stretch after sucking for the rest of the last season. He's talking about Indiana, and that's basically the fact, because last year I didn't think Indiana even deserved to even make the tournament, but a win over Illinois in the Big Ten tournament certainly helps your resume, and the fact that they played in the toughest conference in college basketball, arguably, outside of maybe the SEC last year. So I don't think all of us here are very surprised that Indiana is doing this, because, yeah, last year they weren't very good, and they got hot at the right time that earned them a spot in the NCAA tournament. And here they are, like I guess the experts or the people thought that they would build off that. And that's easy to think, because they have good depth and they have talent. And the thought process was that Mike Woodson can help grow this program. It just isn't working out. So like, I don't know. I still think that they can be a tournament team, but they got to turn it around quickly.
And how funny is it that when going back to Northwestern, because we're talking about IU with Miller Koppes at IU, Ryan Young went to Duke, and Pete Nance went to North Carolina. And somehow Northwestern's a better basketball team without all three of those guys.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can argue that you might be able to argue that Northwestern could, hang around with Duke and UNC right now.
No, I don't know about that.
Maybe UNC more. Maybe UNC more so than anything, because UNC is just such a they're similar to Iowa where you don't really know what you're going to get.
Well, yeah, let's go to Northwestern just because the big topic, or at least the headline, was, can Northwestern make the NCAA tournament? They've made one tournament in their program history back in 2017, and that's the thing. It's like you bring up them beating UNC and Duke, and I don't even know if they can beat Michigan coming up on the 15th, right? Like that's my big question. Is they have 4 or 3 big road games in their next 4 games: at Michigan, at Iowa, versus Wisconsin, and then at Nebraska. And I know that Nebraska won. Nebraska isn't a great team. Obviously, they're 9-8, 2-4 in the conference, but Nebraska is upset. Upset a couple teams.
Beat Iowa by double digits.
Beat Iowa. Beat Creighton by 10. I just think that this is a huge test here for Northwestern, because you're going on the road. Can you beat Iowa? Can you beat Michigan? Can you beat these upper echelon teams? Because, their hopes for making the tournament can all be crushed by these 3 games right here. It's just, get off the rails, and, it's tough to make it back up.
One of the reasons that I even thought of maybe them being able to hang around with like a Duke or a UNC was because their defense is very good. They defend. Like the games that I've watched them, they know how to defend. They got good guards. Boo-Booey's pretty solid. The other guy, I can't think of his name, but Braggs, I know you know who I'm talking about.
It's Chase Augie.
Augie, thank you.
Oh, Chase Audige.
Audige, yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Yeah, they go very well together, and if they hit shots to go with the defense that they have, they can be a very dangerous team. So.
My guy Brian Tonsoni, who I always love to shout out, he's really smart dude. He does bracketology work with Delphi Bracketology, where they predict who's going to be in the tournament. And prior to the Rutgers game, they had him as a 10 seed at this moment. Now the question is, can they make it? Obviously they have to keep winning to even have that chance. That goes without saying. I think the thing that's going to hurt them though is they're obviously going to lose. They might bat 500 the rest of the year, right? Win some, lose some. But at the end of the day, the Big Ten is falling apart, right? There's only 2 ranked teams, Purdue and Wisconsin. And I don't know how much longer Wisconsin's going to last in the top 25. So they've lost a couple games now. So, that's going to be the other thing that hurts them, is how quality will the wins be that they get in the Big Ten. Because it isn't the strongest year for the Big Ten as we thought it would be to start the year. And then they kind of faked us out in the first month and a half. And now it's kind of come back to level since then.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at their non-conference schedule. It wasn't very tough. I mean, they lost by 1 to Auburn at home in a barn burning 43-42 game. But they got blown out by Pittsburgh. Beating DePaul and UIC and Brown doesn't mean much. But again, like their wins in conference are good. I mean, they did go to Michigan State and win by 7, who we were just talking about. They're ascending right now. At least it seems like it. 7 straight victories.
Yep.
I know at the time Michigan State was, had some injuries, but I don't know. I mean, the way that the committee works, I think that I would say that less teams than last year are going to get in the tournament, but I still think that wins in the Big Ten definitely still matter, no matter who they are. If Northwestern finishes in the top echelon of the conference, I think that they can still get in.
Yeah, I think they got a fall coming up just because they're going to be playing so many talented teams here. I think they're finally going to get tested, and that offense, I don't think it's going to be
going to Michigan and Iowa, especially Michigan, because no matter how hot and cold Michigan is, like they're still a tough place to go to Ann Arbor and win. So,
and it's a great way to talk about tonight's game. You got Michigan at Iowa starting at 6 p.m. We got 5 minutes before this one tips off. Also, Ohio State and Minnesota is going on, but that one, upset alert. Golden Gophers up 5 right now in Columbus, but
a competitive team. They still are the worst team in conference, but they have been competitive.
They gave Wisconsin a run. They're going to lose more
beat
times
Wisconsin.
than not,
They had a competitive game with Nebraska, but I mean, depends on how much you you view Nebraska as a good team or not. I think Nebraska is just a bottom tier team in the conference.
And they just recently beat Chicago State by 3. And they're a powerhouse. Iowa, Michigan here. What's our lean? Is Iowa this good? And they're also apparently getting Pat McCaffrey back.
I would lean with Michigan. Michigan coming off that loss against Michigan State at Michigan State. No one can make a shot in that game. But Michigan's defense was very good. And they allowed like a 59-53 game. So their defense was very good. If they play that kind of defense against an Iowa team that doesn't like to play defense, I think they could win outright. They're 5.5-point dogs, but I would lean Michigan in this one just because you really don't know what you're going to get out of Iowa. But what I was done since Patrick McCaffrey left the team for anxiety. It was
2-0, I think.
Yeah, they're 2-0. It was very telling of a Fran McCaffrey program. As much as I don't like the guy, it's very telling. They came together and they won two big games. I mean,
but it's a 2-point victory over an Indiana team that we're talking about slipping. They've lost Xavier Johnson, and then a Rutgers team. It was at Rutgers, which is probably the big part of it, and they win by 11. But I don't know. I think Michigan is too athletic. I think they're too big. I think they can stop Iowa tonight.
Well, even that game against Indiana, the way it started was awful. They were
They were down 26.
Yeah, they were down by 20+ points, and then Indiana just choked it away. So yeah, no, I think that just comes back to there's no consistency with Iowa, and you really don't know what you're gonna get out of them. So yeah, I think Michigan can win that game, and I think that'd be a big win for Michigan in terms of just getting back on track for them in the standings in the Big Ten.
And then Braggs, we got on Friday, your Purdue, number 3 Purdue, hosting Nebraska. You worried at all? What's your worry meter here? If you had to put it 1 through 10. 10
no,
being very worried.
I'm not worried. I was Nebraska gave them a good run at Nebraska. They have length, as my I do a Purdue podcast, and as my co-host would say, Craig Bowers. It's when it comes to Purdue, it isn't aggressiveness of defense that stifles Purdue at times, it's length. And Nebraska does have that length, but Purdue also got to face that and understand what they're trying to do. Brought up Matt Painter. He's always going to play that chess, not checkers, against you. And, it's at Mackey Arena. Students are returning. This will be the first game back with students since before Christmas break. So the house is going to be rocking, especially after the last week, last couple road wins they had. Nebraska just took a tough loss here the other night here. Pretty substantial loss. What was it?
Northwestern?
Yeah. Was it Northwestern?
Yeah, by 3.
Okay.
Sorry. No, I'm thinking of Rutgers.
Yeah.
The two red teams are blending. They just lost to Illinois at home and got blown out.
Yeah, they got smoked by Illinois, and they didn't look good in that game. So I think that Matt Painter will make the adjustments, and I think this game will be a little easier than the last time around against Nebraska. They had their opportunity to beat them in a trap game, and that has passed now. So I have a feeling Purdue will roll them here Friday night.
Staying in Friday, we got Illinois, Michigan State at 8. Alex saying Illinois makes it back in the top 25 with a win tomorrow against the Sparty, who are on a 7-game win streak. Do you think they jump back into the top 25 if they beat Sparty?
I think that there's reason for them to at least be a top 25 team. I think if they win, they would sneak in number 20 or 21, something like that. But yeah, they're at home, State Farm Center. Students back. They're gonna, hosting a very, they're not rivals with Michigan State, but every time Michigan State comes to State Farm Center to play Illinois, it's always a big game. And yeah, the Spartans are hot. They're coming off a win over a rival in Michigan, and Illinois has won 2 in a row. Sky Clark leaves the team, whatever you want to call it. Everything seems like it's in shambles because they lose to Northwestern, and then that happens. And then, they beat Wisconsin. Tyler Wall didn't play, so I don't know how much to take into it. But then you blow out Nebraska, a team that is not that good. But if it would have been like a 10-point win, I probably wouldn't feel good about it. Instead, they win by 26, and I feel great about it. And so now you're taking that momentum into this game tomorrow against a team that's playing well right now at home. To me, this is if Illinois wins tomorrow, it's it says a lot about Brad Underwood and how much of control he had in this program compared to what the narrative was a week and a half ago.
Well,
so,
and I want to share this stat too. Brad Underwood, when the calendar flips to January, let me just make sure. There it is. So since Underwood got out of the rebuild in 19 to 20, his teams have been very distinct with wins and losses. From November to December 25th. In November to December, they're 25-10. That's a 71.4 win percentage. From Jan to March, 34-18. That's a 73.7% win percentage. And then also there was a couple games in there where Io got hurt. There was about 4 games where they ended up losing. So if you take those out, they are 38-10, 79-2 when the calendar flips to January and March. So
assuming that's since like 2020 season.
2019-2020. So here we go. I just shared the Underwood stat, Alex. You're very welcome.
And he corrected me, no students yet. Either way, it's going to be a packed house in Champaign because it's a big game.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be a big game.
It's certainly a big game, but I would say Malik Hall is the difference now in this turnaround for Michigan State. You know, he's a legit player. They didn't have him, which is why they were stumbling. Illinois, they still got to prove it. I mean, I think there's a little bit of fool's gold there. They beat Wisconsin at home, great, but without Tyler Wall, he's one of their leaders. Really tough player in the post. And then to beat Nebraska, okay, great. Let's see you beat somebody impressive here like Michigan State. Then we'll start to consider them back. But until then, I still think they have something to prove. In Michigan State, I think getting Malik Hall back is more of the legitimate, at least turnaround so far that we've seen between the two. And I would lean Michigan State in that game.
Yeah, Malik Hall was very, very good to start the season, did well against Gonzaga and UK, then has kind of been in and out, just started returning back for Big Ten play. But last year against Illinois, 0 points, 0 for 3 in 16 minutes, 27 minutes, and only scored 7 points. So it wasn't that effective against Illinois. So maybe Brad Underwood can stop them, and maybe they can upset Sparty here.
One player on Illinois that I think is going to start opening some eyes. Ty Rogers. The guy had his best game of the year against Nebraska. I understand it's Nebraska, but he coming into that game, he was really struggling to find like a role, to find his way with this roster of basically new players. And I think yesterday he found, or not yesterday, but against Nebraska, he really found that role. And that's just being just an absolute, athletic freak and monster on the defensive end, going after loose balls, getting rebounds, just being a dog, honestly. So I'm intrigued to see how he follows up the game against Nebraska, against Michigan State, because if he gets it going, then the depth that Illinois has, that I have thought that they have had since the beginning of the year, really starts to show. And then you can really start talking about Illinois, getting to where I think they could get to if they win this game. So to me, this is a must-win game, not only because it's a good team that they're playing, but for conference standings too. They're 2-3. They win this game, they're back to 3-3, and then they're right back there in the race to be up there with Purdue, Michigan State, especially with Michigan State second place right now. It's a major game for Illinois to win, or to have, and with a chance to get to that point at home is huge.
Yeah, has to be a huge confidence booster too, just with the way they started. If they're able to get a win like that against Sparty, it'd be huge to get the team back on the right track. The other games just this weekend in the Big Ten, 18 Wisconsin at Indiana. That's on Saturday at 12 p.m. on CBS. And then a triple header on the Big Ten Network on Sunday. Northwestern at Michigan at 11 a.m. Ohio State at Rutgers at 1:15, and then Maryland at Iowa at 3:30. That's the weekend slate for Big Ten basketball. I got some football stuff here. Greg Huss in the chat asked about Chicago State's football program. Chicago State yesterday announced that they're considering adding a D1 football team. They, I think, do have 11 current men's sports compared to 8 women's sports, so they would have to at least balance that out if they were going to add a football program. But the school did not mention which Division I tier it would join, whether it be FBS or FCS. I don't think that they're going to be inevitably joining the Big Ten, like Greg says, and I'm not sure if Greg is kidding there.
I think he is.
Okay, I was about to say. I think they're
we got
looking,
enough teams joining the Big Ten here soon with UCLA and USC.
Shout out to
Chicago State's gonna have to wait their turn.
Yeah, Chicago State isn't in the right region, right? It's too local. They're looking for these broad ranging aspects. I don't think Chicago State's going to get a football team. I don't think that they're going to be FBS. I'll be shocked if the city of Chicago has a football team in the FBS division anytime soon.
Yeah, I would say if they did get one, it would be an FCS.
I have seen
or like NAIA.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's St. Xavier's level. My program out in the South Side. I think the only team that's in actual Chicago proper, the only college football team that's in Chicago proper is St. Xavier. So let's keep it that way.
Wow.
I have seen some great City League, Chicago City League championships played at Chicago State once upon a time. So I just enjoy the atmosphere there.
There you go. Then the final question I got for you guys, Jim Harbaugh, Big Ten related, still hasn't really confirmed that he'll be back with the Wolverines next year. And it seems like, hey, maybe make me a contract extension or I might go poke around the Denver job. Do we think Jim Harbaugh will be an NFL man again?
If the violations go through, he'll be the first one out the door. And be like, sorry about that. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I don't know if he's going to go to Denver, maybe Indianapolis, because then if Indy wants to sell the farm to move up to number 1 and give Chicago a bunch of first overall picks and he gets Bryce Young to mentor, maybe that would be the situation. I don't see him going to Denver. That just seems like a recipe for disaster.
I think he stays in Michigan. JJ McCarthy's his guy. Our producer Steven is probably excited when
my
I say
favorite guy. Yeah. I had to hop in for that, JJ McCarthy.
That's his guy.
That's why he went there. Exactly. You're 100% on point with that.
So yeah, I think he stays, unless like what Greg says, if things don't go well with the stuff. So, but and if the one reason I like Harbaugh is he's succeeded everywhere he's gone. He was a great coach for the 49ers. They went to the Super Bowl. He was good at Stanford. Then he goes to Michigan, and I understand he struggled against Ohio State for the longest time, but he's beat them the last 2 times with the college football playoff last 2 years. Sure, the season ended in disappointment, but he's a good coach. So,
and how bad do you feel if you're Michigan losing to TCU like you did?
Oh my God!
And then to have TCU get boat raced in the national championship.
I tweeted that the other night.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan would have gotten boat raced too. Michigan would have gotten boat raced too.
I'm not saying they wouldn't have, but like Cody pointed out in his tweet, and you were the one that put that out there. Yeah. I mean, they had Michigan. He tweeted, Michigan fans have to feel worse than TCU fans right now watching the national championship because, they probably would have got handled by Georgia too, but no excuse to lose the TCU when they're losing by 60.
I'm not sure what the spread would have been if it would have been Michigan versus Georgia. The TCU was 13-point underdogs against Georgia.
9.5.
I would only think it would be like 11.5. I don't think it would have been that different because it was like 12.5 for the most part, like maybe down to 10.5, but I still think they would have at least given them 10 points.
And then conversely,
perhaps
that the way Georgia played in the national championship, because all things come back to the Bears. Bears are boilers with me. The stock had to have raised with CJ Stroud watching the national championship because he played Georgia's defense really well, had a great game, could have beat them if their kicker knew how to punch it through the uprights. So CJ Stroud's stock just not even playing in that game because I was like mad that Ohio State didn't win. But now looking back, it almost helps his stock because then Georgia puts on a show on Monday night. You're like, well, CJ Stroud took that defense to task. So that's great for the Bears because we need all, now that we're at number 1, it doesn't matter as much for all 3 quarterbacks market getting driven up unless you believe in the double trade back scenarios. I know we're not talking Bears here, but I just found that really interesting that CJ Stroud's stock went up and he didn't even play on Monday night.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he answered a lot of questions. I mean, like the Michigan game, I don't think he had a bad game. He just didn't really have those bigger plays, but I think he consistently did that against Georgia, and we saw how good that defense was. So, I mean, I would pick him number 1. He's got the body. He's got the size. He's not as good as an athlete as Justin Fields, but I think he's shown that he could be a really efficient passer, just like Justin showed he was in college. And we know, obviously, teams are probably regretting taking, Zach Wilson above Justin Fields here. 2 with the Harbaugh thing, and Alex points it out correctly in the comments here. Mel Tucker's making $95 million. Jim Harbaugh's making $36 million. I knew Mel Tucker was a fraud in the NFL. I was shocked to see him do as well as he did at Colorado. Shocked to see him do as well as he did at Michigan State. But here's the thing. Even though he did so well, quote unquote, taking over Mike D'Antoni's team, hasn't been that good last year. And also, Jim Harbaugh has gone to the playoffs twice. Mel Tucker not. So I'm it's pretty clear why Harbaugh, especially who has gotten a pay decrease as well at Michigan, would want some more money. So I think as long as they back up the Brinks truck, Bricks, you got me thinking about Bricks. I think Harbaugh will stay in Michigan.
Well, I mean, speaking of people that might get a raise, with Texas firing Chris Beard, all these Texas fans are barking up Matt Painter's tree. Longhorn Nation, just back off. Matt Painter ain't going nowhere.
That's the right hire. It's not Calipari. Leave Calipari.
Yeah, well, Painter ain't leaving West Lafayette, and they may just give him a raise just to make sure he's all good with that. But
they'll make him chairman of the Big Ten. I mean, maybe they'll pull all the stops and give Matt Painter like a huge job and just
that's what I was going to ask Cody. I mean, I know you're doing, really well here at CHGO, but have you put in your application to be the commissioner of the Big Ten now with Kevin Warren going to the Chicago Bears? I mean, I think you'd be great ambassador for this conference.
You can get rid of Northwestern entirely.
I would get rid of Northwestern, and I would remove the idea of bringing USC and UCLA here because I just can't. I can't fathom the idea of Illinois playing UCLA at 9 p.m. on a Saturday night. I can't do that. No, I can't do that.
I'm fine with it. Let's go. West Coast football. I'm for it. What am I going to bet on at 11 p.m.? Oh, there's Big Ten football. Hopefully it's not Illinois because then I wouldn't be able to bet it.
Nothing would be funnier than a Big Ten team in the college football championship going up against Alabama and the commissioner Cody tweeting, "I'm ready to be hurt again." I'm sure that would go over.
I can't wait for the Rutgers USC games at 11 p.m. That's going to be great college football. Anyways, we're going to wrap it up.
You two will be putting all sorts of money on it.
You know it.
All day long.
That's why we host CHGO Bets After Dark. It's our gig.
Tuesday was it was a sad day, Braggs, because college football is over until the fall now. Like now we have to take that energy and put it on college basketball until March is over. And then we have baseball.
Ugh. But here's the thing, like at least for college basketball, we got 2 more months of making money because we're good at college basketball betting.
And I say betting, like betting wise. I hate betting baseball. As much as I love the Cubs and love talking about baseball, I hate betting on baseball. So
we're gonna have a good year. 2023 is going to be a good year, especially now that we got Braggs on our team. Make sure you follow Braggs on Twitter at GBraggsJr23. That's Cody Del Mendo. You can follow him on Twitter at Cody_CHGO. I'm Sean Anderson. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_W_Anderson. Thank you to everyone for hanging out with us in the chat. Greg, Barbara, Alex, we do appreciate it. Shout out to Braggs' mom as well.
That's my mom.
Braggs' mom.
Shout out to Braggs' mom.
And shout out to Stephen Nicholas for producing the show. We will talk to you next week. And we did have a college basketball little preview on CHGO Bets earlier today at 3 p.m. So if you're looking for some basketball bets tonight.
And NFL.
And NFL, make sure you check that out with Cody and I. But that's going to do it. And we'll talk to you when we are, in fact, millionaires next week.